The week's end top stories at NBR, news of a judicial review application, extended selection period for the next America's Cup, low electricity use regulations to be phased out, and there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR This Week. We start with a wrap of the end of the week's top business stories in the third week of September from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz. Then we'll take a look back at the top NBR Today stories for the past week. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks again for joining us. Queenstown property developer Chris Meehan's Winton Property Investments has applied for a judicial review of the Overseas Investment Office decision to approve CDL Investments' purchase of Havelock North Land. NZX-listed CDL Investments, controlled by Millennium and Copthorne Hotels, settled the 69.4-hectare acquisition of unknown value in July, with plans to develop a residential sub-development. The deal was approved by the OIO on July 10 on the grounds the deal would result in the creation of jobs and support the creation of new housing. The regulators said the purchasing subsidiary, CDL Land New Zealand, has significant New Zealand ownership and participation, with approximately 45% of the company controlled by New Zealanders. In a note to the NZX, CDL said Winton Property Investments was seeking an order to set aside the OIO'S decision and/or a declaration that ministers erred at law in making the decision to grant consent. The decision was made by Associate Minister of Finance, Dr. Megan Woods, and Minister for Land Information of New Zealand, Damien O'Connor. New Zealand has an opportunity to be a testbed for global innovation in the cloud and managed services space, according to the ex-Oracle executive now leading Spark subsidiary CCL. Heather Graham spent 24 years at Oracle, the tech behemoth founded by Larry Ellison, now worth $240 billion US, where she led the company's establishment of its cloud computing business. Heather Graham joined the NBR's Will Mace.
Well, I think a lot of it will be about collaboration. So a lot of the collaboration tools you'll be wanting to, seeing when I can't physically be together, you're going to be wanting to sort of get, your SharePoint and your Microsoft Teams and other enablement and collaboration tools. So you can continue to work seamlessly, share files, get on remote camera like we are now. Isn't it awesome? So it just allows for that seamless sort of environment where you can feel connected, be able to be productive, and still get efficiency and continue to generate the workloads that you want to get out.
CCL CEO Heather Graham with the NBR's Will Mace there. The Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and Emirates Team New Zealand have extended the selection period for deciding the host of the next America's Cup regatta, which was initially due to be announced today. RNZYS Commodore Aaron Young said the parties wanted to make the right decision rather than a rushed one, given an 11th-hour application to host the regatta in Auckland from businessman Mark Dunphy, under the banner of his Kiwi Home Defence organisation, which launched a website and social media campaign yesterday. Dunphy said he welcomed the move to take more time with the decision and was pleased to hear they were seriously considering hosting the Cup in Auckland. RNZYS and TNZ said the extension of the process would give Dunphy further time to answer the questions they had already put to him over the past month. Shares in the NZX-listed owner of second-hand car dealer Too Cheap Cars have gone into a trading halt as one of the founders sells down up to $5 million of their shareholding. NZ Automotive Investments, which operates Too Cheap Cars and vehicle finance company NZ Motor Finance, joined the main board of the NZX in February this year. As a direct listing, NZAI did not issue any new securities, but its 45.5 million shares were priced at $1.30 a share, valuing it at just over $59 million. The company's share price has struggled post-listing, however, falling as low as $1 in May. Its shares this week were trading at $1.13. The company's retail arm was established in 2011 by Eugene Williams and David Senna. The government is moving to phase out regulations on low-use electricity plans, which it says will result in lower power bills for about 60% of households. As it stands, the cost of delivering electricity through lines charges to those on low-use plans is supplemented by other households on standard-use plans, a mechanism the 2019 Electricity Price Review Panel recommended be changed after finding it was poorly targeted and not entirely fair. About 59% of households are on low fixed charge plans, with those on standard-use plans charge more to make up for the under-recovery of fixed charges from those on the lower rates. Energy and Resources Minister Megan Woods said the panel's recommendation would be adopted. Phasing out of the regulations on low-use electricity plans will create a fairer playing field for all New Zealanders and encourage a switch to electric technologies, a statement from Woods' office said. Those are our top stories as we head into the weekend, the full versions of which, along with all our breaking business news columns and opinion, are at nbr.co.nz right now. You're watching NBR This Week, a brief look back now at the week's top stories from our daily video news program NBR Today. On Monday, the FMA's new hire. The Financial Markets Authority says it carefully considered litigation, including an employment claim involving its new Chief Executive Samantha Barris, before appointing her to replace Rob Everett. It was reported last August that Barris reached an out-of-court settlement and withdrew an employment claim against the Gibraltar government, Minister for Financial Services and the GFSC, and also faced an ongoing defamation case brought by a lawyer following media statements made by the Commission following the collapse of a company called Enterprise Insurance. The FMA, however, said it was both aware and had considered these matters, with the defamation suit seen as an occupational risk associated with high-profile regulatory roles. This is NBR This Week, the past week's top 5 business stories from NBR Today. From Wednesday, a building sector grimly realistic. A paradigm shift is needed in the way the planning system deals with infrastructure, according to the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission, Te Waihanga. In its submission on the exposure draft of the Natural and Built Environments Bill, Te Waihanga told Parliament's Environment Select Committee that the country faced 3 urgent challenges requiring it to prioritise infrastructure. One was a significant infrastructure deficit, an estimated $75 billion of new and or upgraded infrastructure long overdue. A second was the climate crisis. New Zealand had an ambitious 2050 target for carbon emissions reduction, but almost no progress has been made achieving this. And a third was the housing crisis, with housing increasingly unaffordable to many and the problem set to be further compounded by the need to provide for a growing population. It's NBR This Week, the week's top stories from our daily video business news bulletin NBR Today. From Tuesday, dealing with infrastructure. The chances of further easing of building products restrictions, which are crippling the sector, are pretty much zero, the construction industry says. Sector groups have been lobbying MB all week, trying to get more exemptions allowing building products manufacturers to return to work. Most building supplies come from Auckland, so the lack of materials due to the continuing level 4 lockdown in the city is causing disastrous delays to residential and commercial construction nationwide, they say. While the government has made exemptions for 8 companies supplying roofing steel, insulation and plasterboard to get back to work, they are limited to a total of 100 workers across all 8. There's also no supply of critical associated products. It's NBR This Week, the top business stories from our daily video news bulletin NBR Today. From Thursday, JUCY Group back in the news. One of the businesses in the beleaguered campervan rental and tourism operator JUCY Group, which was in February tipped into liquidation, owes unrelated unsecured creditors about $3 million. JUCY, formerly owned by the NBR rich listers the Alp family, went into receivership last year after COVID-19 had an unprecedented and devastating impact on the business. Border restrictions across the 3 markets it operated in, New Zealand, Australia and the US, saw revenue decrease by more than 90% from March last year. The company was believed to have had an annual turnover of more than $50 million. This is NBR This Week. Now we're up to Friday's top story. China's state-owned Beijing Capital Group is said to be preparing to sell its New Zealand business, Waste Management, with investment bank Citi hired to handle the process. Waste Management provides waste collection services nationwide, runs transfer stations, and owns the giant Red Vale landfill site north of Auckland. The company has resource consent to build a new landfill at Wayby Valley, Wellsford, north of Auckland, to take over from Red Vale, but faces opposition from locals, iwi, the Department of Conservation, and Forest and Bird, who have lodged appeals with the Environment Court. A hearing is expected mid-next year. Sources say Waste Management may be valued at around $1.4 billion. You've been watching our review of the week's top 5 NBR Today stories. You can find the full versions of those stories and more, along with all our daily breaking news, columns and opinion at nbr.co.nz right now. Saturday at NBR, Fact or Fiction, Brent Edwards and Grant Walker debate the week in politics, and from Monday, look out for some new NBR columnists. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks for watching NBR This Week. Have a great weekend. I look forward to being with you again from around lunchtime Monday with the NBR's trending stories, and then from 5:30 on Monday with another NBR Today.